Okay, this is a separate introductory video for those who might prefer that I share a little bit more information about who I am and how I got to this point with BC Running Coach. I certainly will not share with you the entire life story, but just to give you some of the greatest hits, I would say that since 2006, or really since 2002, I've been coaching a very diverse spectrum of runner. Very nice bell-shaped curve. I mean, certainly I could talk about it in terms of like fitness and pace and speed, where I've got some super fit folks on one end who could qualify for Boston, no problem. Any local 5K or 10K they show up to, they could win their age group or even win the entire race overall. And then coming back here on this end of the bell-shaped curve, I've got some former couch potatoes. And maybe their big goal is just to run a mile without stopping. Or at the end of the year, their ambitious goal is to maybe break 30 minutes in a 5K. And then I've got a nice even spread in between. You know, some first-time marathoners, first-time half marathoners, break 60 minutes, break an hour in a 10K is a nice symbolic goal. So no matter how you slice and dice the demographics, that also goes for age as well. I mean, I probably work with people who have the exact same nagging injuries that you've had, the exact same pace as you. They got into running for the same reasons as you. I've been privileged in that regard. You know, and I mentioned in the other intro video, I've worked with over 1,000 runners. It hasn't just been, you know, 101 sessions. It's also been putting together programs for these people who have very busy lives, you know, and they have ambitious fitness goals too. They want to think of themselves as an athlete, and I refer to them as athletes. It's a strong part of their identity. So yes, people out there do actually hire a run coach. I wear many hats, and I'm a chameleon in that regard. I'm mostly working with amateur runners and triathletes, but given the nature of the Washington, D.C. area, there's also a lot of military and law enforcement personnel area in the community, so I'm usually always training people for a physical fitness test, a PFT, and sometimes that gets creative because there's a 1.5 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile component. At the same time, they have a short sprint component, so there's an art to that run training of simultaneously getting fit for seemingly two different events. I am contacted quite frequently by parents of high school and college athletes who maybe need some help in their off season. So I work with, you know, some state champions at the high school level, some conference champions at the collegiate level. I'm definitely contacted by parents of the wee ones, the little youth who are still growing and still learning how to throw their limbs around. So that's usually just like a fun 20-30 minute session because their attention span is only so big. But you know, with all this diversity that's been thrown at me that I've welcomed, and the chameleon that I am, built into my philosophy is that, you know, as I mentioned before, I cannot take that plastic mold and fit it over everyone to force people to run the same way. And unfortunately, another goal of this video series is that I get the essence and the vibe sometimes that that's the nature of these articles being written. Again, especially when it comes to the shoes, the cadence, the forefoot strike that's now becoming a bigger movement. And I'm not counter to it. I think anyone watching this, we're pretty much in general agreement, but I work with individuals. I'm not a run club coach. I'm really trying to pinpoint how can I make this work for you. So that's my area of expertise, is performance psychology. I'll say more about that in a second. And every now and then, about 1 out of 10 runners, 10% of the time, I actually don't change a single thing with somebody's running form. I've been dealt a really nice hand, and if it ain't broke, I'm not fixing it. In terms of my own athletic background, I did not grow up running cross country or track and field. I did football, basketball, baseball pretty much every year, youth up through high school, and then my first initial experiences in actual run training were as a decathlete in college, which I pretty much just stumbled into by accident as I was training with the track and field sprinters to get faster for the football team and the rugby team, which I was a member in college as well. So someone had to pick up the decathlon for conference championships one year, and it got thrown to me. And then right after college, I went in to get a master's degree in sports psychology in the Department of Kinesiology at University of Maryland. And that certainly opened up my eyes to the world of coaching. That was the intent. And shortly thereafter, I got hired as a track and field coach. And right along with that, on a parallel track, I picked up certifications with USA Track and Field, up through level 2, USA Weightlifting, and the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And it was with those certifications that I really strengthened the connection between, I'll use the word again, strength training and running form. And all the while I was getting into triathlon and duathlon and road racing, so I was brand new to the world of endurance sports when I first started, but plugged away, stuck with it, and by the time I finished I had some All-American honors, some PRs at the Boston Marathon, ran next to Lance Armstrong for Stride for Stride for a mile, competed in some amateur world championships as well. I've also played and taught, basketball, baseball, racquetball, badminton, done fencing, skiing, done some water polo practices, still play some ultimate frisbee, done soccer, obstacle course racing. I've won pool tournaments, won dart leagues. I still occasionally enter some dance competitions for fun. So over the years, I've tried pretty much everything that's out there under the sun in the world of athletics. And I think that offers me a very unique advantage in having an eclectic athletic background. And what I mean by the eclectic athletic background being my main skill set, it's that I have moved my body, in every possible plane and any possible direction at all times. So it sounds funny, but what that means for me as a coach is if we do a running 101 session, I can parrot you very well. I can mimic you down to the subtlest movement, so I can show you in real time, like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like, here's what you look like when you run. I always use that expression. When you move forward, with your body through space, here's what's going on. And because I've done all these different sports and movements, teaching it, coaching it, or competing at a very high level, I understand, why and how it's happening. I can sense it, I can feel it, I can show it to you. We know from where it stems, and then we can correct it. In terms of that rumor, that is true, that I did get to coach Reese Witherspoon's running form one day on the set of a film, and it was being shot in DC. But to be honest, I really didn't do much coaching with her at all. I mean, she was a gymnast growing up, so she had really good sprint mechanics that she had to portray a professional athlete in her movie. So they hired me for a weekend and said, hey, when she runs, make sure she looks like an athlete when she runs. So well done, Reese. Then another funny story I can throw into the mix here is as I'm here in a gym at University of Maryland's campus, we have a biomechanics department downstairs. And one day I was just being a little bit nosy, wandering in and just looking to see what they do, because I'm fascinated by how they do these force plate studies, these laboratory studies, when they hook up the markers on people's body, and that way when it transposes to the computer screen, it looks like just a big stick figure running on screen. So one day I walked in and I saw this stick figure on the screen, and I said, hey, that's a 47-year-old guy, isn't it? And they're like, it's 46, but how did you know that? So that is my unique skill set. I try to keep an element of humor in my coaching, and my personal coaching style would be that of performance psychology. I take social psychology, cognitive psychology, and positive psychology, and I apply it all at the same time. So I am very fortunate to be in a top kinesiology program here at the University of Maryland, where I'm currently studying cognitive motor neuroscience. And that's pretty much the end of the greatest hits. That's more of the story on me. So enough about me. Let's get into it.